Russia says it has captured the strategic Ukrainian city of Lyman in the Donbas region. The Russian onslaught is causing heavy Ukrainian losses, and a large number of troops risk being surrounded in the city of Severodonetsk. It's also raising fears that cities in the Donbas could face the same horrors that took place in Mariupol, where Russian artillery blasted the city with no apparent attempt to avoid civilian casualties. Now, Russia first invaded Donbas 8 years ago, capturing part of the industrial region. Now it says it aims to seize the rest. DW correspondent Matthias Büllinger has visited one town living under the shadow of war.
For years, occasional shelling has occurred here. But now, the shells hit daily. Welcome to New York. That is what this town on the front line in eastern Ukraine is officially called. German settlers picked the name in the 19th century. Stalin renamed it Novgorodskaya. The name was officially changed back last year. Boris Bocharov, a local poet, was hoping the name of New York would bring a new spirit to the former industrial town. There's no production anymore. We thought the name would attract investors who would help us. This building has been restored with foreign aid. We've been holding forums and cultural events here. Now bomb craters line the road in front of the cultural club. Several shells have hit the neighborhood.
My windows burst and the roof was lifted. I was sitting in the basement when it happened.
Instead of reading his poetry, Bocharov now looks after the remaining inhabitants and organizes aid.
I'm in the basement every day. We've been sitting in basements for 8 years.
Yes. Many houses in town are damaged or destroyed. 3/4 of the 8,000 inhabitants have left. Those who remain live in constant fear. Olena Vashchuk is picking up the pieces. A rocket came down in her yard 2 days ago.
We're trying to replace the doors. We found some old ones because there are no more doors. Not here and not there. I don't even know what the use of restoring everything is. We fix it now and tomorrow another shell hits.
Boris has evacuated his wife to western Ukraine, where his daughter lives. You see what's happening here. Nevertheless, he's determined to stay as long as help is needed. As the saying goes, hope is the last one to die. I'm on Ukraine's side. I trust the news, and I was born in this town. I hope there will be no incoming shell. This whistling sounds almost like we need to dive. Just months ago, they were dreaming of creating a cultural hub in New York. Now, it's all about surviving.
Well, DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters is in Kyiv, and earlier she told us Ukraine is struggling to hold back the Russian assault in Donbas.
Well, the situation in the Donbas is going very, very badly for the Ukrainians at this stage, Pablo. Excuse me. They've been admitting for a couple of days now that they have lost the upper hand there, that Russia really has the upper hand and is dominating the battle in Luhansk and Donetsk. And as you heard from that report, it certainly seems to be the case. 95% of Luhansk is now under Russian control, and they are going forward as well. The city of Severodonetsk, where most of the fighting is now centred in that region. The Russian troops are now encircling that city. There is some mixed reports as to whether or not the Russians have gained control of that city. Russia saying that they have, Ukraine saying that they haven't yet, but they have said for a couple of days now that they may have to pull Ukrainian troops out of that area, unable to shore up defences further back. They just don't have the heavy weaponry they need to be able to hold back the Russians and push them back. They're calling on the international community, pleading with the international community to send these big weapons, particularly multiple rocket launchers, multiple rocket launchers that can fire up to 300 kilometres in the distance. They need this kind of weaponry if they're going to be able to stop Russia's advance. But whether it comes in time really remains to be seen, Pablo.
Well, in his daily address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy talked about the human cost of war. How bad is the situation for the civilians stuck in the areas under bombardment?
As we know, civilians always pay the highest cost in these situations, in these wars. The people living in that area, as you heard from some of them, you know, the situation is really dire for civilians. I mean, similarly to what we saw in places like Mariupol that were being completely bombarded for weeks, months, people have to live completely almost underground. They don't have access to fresh water. They run out of food. You know, they're living in darkness most of the time. They're being completely pounded by Russian and also Ukrainian bombs in defence of the regions as well. So, you know, these situations is just dire for the civilians on the ground, and it doesn't look like it's getting better anytime soon.
Rebecca Ritter's in Kyiv. Thank you. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has again spoken to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron by telephone. He reportedly told them he's ready to talk about lifting a blockade in the Black Sea that has hit Ukrainian farmers hard and is threatening a global food crisis.
A bumper crop. Usually, that is good news for a farmer. But with exports out of Ukraine's Black Sea ports blocked, these grain silos in Dnipro are still full from the last harvest.
You can see that the field is in excellent condition. The harvest will be good. But where should we keep it? We don't know.
Road transport is a last resort, but it is too slow to empty the granaries. The next harvest is due mid-July. If ports remain closed, this farmer says he faces bankruptcy. Closer to the shifting front line, farming may be too dangerous. These fields near Kharkiv have been reclaimed, but they are still littered with mines and shells. Some farmers continue to seed the soil with the limited equipment left.
There are a lot of holes. The whole farmland is full of holes left by shelling. We don't have strikes right now, but there are shells and rockets on the ground. So we drive past them and still seed. What else can we do?
Russia has said it would be willing to allow grain exports if the West ends sanctions. As food prices continue to rise sharply, the ongoing crisis is expected to push millions more around the world into hunger.